The infamous population bet. In 1980, two American professors bet $1,000 on a question with state debts that couldn't be higher. Would the Earth run out of resources to sense and grow human population? One of them was Stanford biologist Paul Ehrlich, who wrote the best-selling 1960 book, The Population Bomb. The global population has grown rapidly since World War II, and Ehrlich predicts that millions would starve to death if the population increased faster than a food supply. He drew the idea of the 18th century economic Thomas Malthus and related work from the 20th century. Malthus has posited that population growth is unchecked over time would always outpace the food supply. Through the 1970s, it seems like Ehrlich was right. Famines, pollution, and political unrest has many concerns that humanity was on the brink of such a crisis, and some governments consider and even implemented policy to limit population growth. That is against Ehrlich was Julian Simon, a professor of business and economics. He analyzed historical data from around the world and found no correlation between growing population and a decrease in standard of living. In fact, he found the opposite. He argued that Ehrlich's work and that as Malthus for him, it was based on theoretical calculations, while the real-world data told a different story. But then he departed from the data himself, claiming human engineers would always find alternatives to complex for diminishing resources. If that seems overly optimistic to you, well, you're not alone. Ehrlich and other experts found the Simon's claiming preposterous. In June 1980, Simon wrote a scathing article for a scientific magazine that incited a heated debate on published article between the two men. Simon said he should have pressed a wager against Ehrlich a year before when Ehrlich ventured that English would not exist in the year 2000. Accord. Later that year, Simon called Ehrlich a false prophet and challenged him to bet. There are few that touched on the device where prioritizing environmental protection or economic growth, a key issue in American president's race between Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. After some debate, they set the final terms: $200 on the price of each of 5 metals. If the price of metal decreased or held steady over the next decades, Simon won. If the price increased, Ehrlich won. Wait, what? Weren't we talking about overpopulation and famine? What could the price of metal possibly have to do with that? Well, the reality is that price metal may not have been best choice. Manufacturers impact these prices and have nothing to do with overpopulation. But their reasoning was followed. Metal are finite natural resources. Using others manufacturing, Ehrlich believed a growing population would consume such finite resources and scarcity would drive the prices up. Simon thought humanity would find substitutes for metal and prices would stay stable or even decrease. So, what happened? The world population continued to increase over the next 10 years, but the price of all 5 metals decreased, making Simon a clear winner of the bet that netting not have been a great proxy for the question they were debating anyway. As for the question itself, today they are focused on population that presents a snapshot of the history. Our understanding of what causes starvation and famine has progressed. We have resources to support the growing human population, but we're currently failing to distribute those resources equitably, and chasing that should be our priority. And we no longer see population size as a primary cause of environmental degradation and climate change, or limiting population growth as a viable solution to these problems. Rather, experts largely agree that our focus should be on replacing sustainable technology and practicing with sustainable ones, and that economic growth and environmental protection don't have to be at odds. In October 1990, Joy and Simon received a check from Paul Ehrlich. There was no note. So how can we feed every person on the planet a healthy diet? And how can we do so without further damaging the planet? Find out this video and the future of food. one more. In 1980, two American professors bet $1,000 on a occasion with stake that could be higher. Would the Earth run out of resources to sustain a growing human population? One of them was Stanford biologist Paul Ehrlich, who wrote the best-selling 1968 book, The Population Bomb. The global population has grown rapidly since World War II, and Ehrlich predicts that millions would starve to death as the population increases faster than the food supply. He drew the idea of the 18th century economist Thomas Malthus and related to work from the 20th century. Malthus has posited the population growth, if unchecked over time, would always outpace food supply. Through the 1970s, it seems like Ehrlich was right. Famine, pollution, and political unrest has many concerns that humanity was on the brink of such a crisis, and some governments consider and even implemented policies to limit population growth. Then against Ehrlich was Julian Simon, a professor of business and economics. He analyzed historical data from around the world and found no correlation between growing population and the decrease in standard of living. In fact, he found the opposite. He argued that Ehrlich's work and then Malthus before him was based on theoretical calculations, while the real-world data told a different story. But then he departed from the data himself, claiming human engineering would always find alternatives to compensate for diminishing resources. If that is overly optimistic to you, well, you're not alone. Ehrlich and other experts found some claim preposterous. In June 1980, Simon wrote a scathing article for Science magazine that incited a heated debate of published article between two men. Simon said he should place a wager against all the years before when Ehrlich ventured that England would not exist in the year 2000. Later that year, Simon called Ehrlich a false prophet and challenged him to bet. There are few also touched on debates about whether the prioritizing by environmental protection or economic growth, a key issue in the American presidential race between Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. After some debate, they set the final terms: $200 on the price of each of the 5 metals. If the price of metal decreased or held steady over the next decades, Simon won. If the price increased, Ehrlich won. Wait, what? Were we talking about overpopulation and famine? What could the price of metal possibly have to do with that? Well, the reality is that price of metal may not have been the best choice. Manufacturing impact these prices has been nothing to do with overpopulation. But their reasoning was followed. Metal was defined as natural resources, using all sorts of manufacturing. Ehrlich believed a growing population would consume such finite resources, and scarce would drive the prices up. Simon thought that humanity would find a substitute for the metal and prices would stay stable or even decrease. So, what happened? The world population continued to increase over the next 10 years, but the price of all 5 metals decreased, making Simon a clear winner of the bet that men did not have a great proxy for the question they were debating anyway. As for the question itself, today their focus on population represents a snapshot of history. Our understanding of what caused starvation and famine has progressed. We have the resources to support the growing human population, though we're currently failing to distribute those resources equitably, and changing that should be our priority. And we no longer see population size as a primary cause of environmental deterioration and climate change, or limiting population growth as a viable solution to these problems. Rather, experts largely agree that our focus should be on replacing unsustainable technologies and practicing with sustainable ones, and that economic growth and environmental protections don't have to be at odds. In October 1999, Joy and Simon received a check from Paul Ehrlich. There was no note. So how can we feed every person on the planet a healthy diet? And how can we do so without further damaging that planet? Find out this video on the future of food.